It's the end of the 5th week of the building team being here, working on lowering the floors and reinforcing the walls. At the end of last week, we had almost finished, but with the August holiday period upon us, we've still got a bit more rock to remove and a few rooms to tidy up. And with the weather due to be mostly sunny and increasingly hot, it's a good job that most of the work is going to be inside. But we're still going to need a lot of energy and plenty of water to do this work. So my first job each morning is going to be to open up the house and make sure that the ice box is in place for the drinks. The team for the start of the week were the same 3 as at the end of last week. And they started by clearing rock across the middle room, dropping some rocks outside and some into other rooms, which I then broke up. The priority for the day was to clear the rock in this front room. And while they worked in its entrance, there wasn't space for 4 of us, so I headed outside for a bit of tidying up. I'm not sure how much of these materials I will reuse, but I will keep them on site until I'm sure they are not needed. This week I would spend a lot of time breaking rocks into smaller sizes so that the floors were a bit more level and easier to walk across. I then had a quick break for some Monday morning admin before heading back to see how the team had progressed up to their morning break. I'd let them get on with it to start with, but I had some ideas on how to speed things up, which I tested and set up during their break, and then put into practice for the rest of the morning, with there now being enough space for me to get involved. We were clearing this room at this stage because we wanted to start using it as the storage space. For some of the bigger rocks, we picked them out by hand and dumped them outside, while at this stage the smaller stones were moved into the open space area where we needed them on the floor. With the better working rhythms, the speed had picked up, and I was happy to take a quick lunch break while the guys worked on the far end of the room. And while they finished the last rock shifting in this room, I got back to playing whack-a-mole with the rocks. And with the front room now done, it was time to transfer things out of the open plan area so that we could start adding more rocks and gravel to its floor. During the day, Enric had checked in on progress, and we decided to reinforce the team to speed up the work on the next days. And when the team had gone, I shifted some of my stuff out of the way to complete the emptying of the entrance area. The next day, I was back early to open up. and the team that was now 5 got straight into work when they arrived. Seni and Alu clearing the middle room, and Sam and Fodo heading into the back room, while I continued smashing rocks being put into the entrance area and the hole in the corner. Which, when I found a good rhythm, was proving surprisingly enjoyable, albeit tiring. When the team got beyond the entrance, I was back helping on the back room, and I thought this was a good time to show a very fast version of all the floor work that has gone in this room up to this moment. It's essentially the same process that I and then the team have followed across all of the ground floor rooms. For me, it all started a few months ago. First of all, with the removal of the floor tiles, which I stacked up and stored outside. A bit later on, I spent some days clearing all of the dirt to reveal the bedrock foundations below. And then, while the building team were on site for their previous phase of work, I started to dig out the rock, nearly all by hand in this room, where I was able to remove a lot of big straight edge stones that I will reuse in the future. And then the team removed 50 centimeters of rock around the wall edges and put reinforced concrete along each one. And then back to the present moment, it was time for the morning break. Which gave me a window of time to smooth the surface in here before the team added more bigger stones that would make the area more difficult to work in. Then it was back to work in the back room, where most of the rock seams were tightly packed and proving pretty hard to break up. And with 6 of us having worked hard all day, we had made pretty good progress, but we were going to need another day. The next day I started early and got straight into rock breaking. And when the team arrived, they got straight back into it, although the holiday season had reduced their number by 1. Seni and Alu would quickly finish off the middle room, and then all 4 of them worked in the back room together. At this stage, it was a constant balancing act of where to put the rocks being dug out, We would need to keep some in the back room, but also have enough rocks in the other rooms to make sure they all had similar levels. And each time a new pile was added, I had to break up the bigger rocks. For a small window of time, I was able to do some tidying up on the first floor. But then I was back to helping in the back room when Seni and Alu moved on to tidying up outside and moving things indoors for storage. With the work almost done, I squeezed in a quick lunch break. Before some checks on the team's final work. And then a final review of the backroom and a personal thanks to each of the team. And having not done a proper introduction at the start of the work, they agreed to some individual exits as they left for the last time. After the excitement of finishing yesterday, I've come back to review the work of this week and the results of all of the floor lowering work, which I started a few months ago when I started lifting out the floor tiles. Well before there were any machines or materials in this space like there have been for the last 5 weeks. And before this corner started to fill up with the slate-like rocks that we'd excavated from in there. Today, it's a lot more peaceful without the generator in this spot, but despite a bit of reorganizing, it's still overflowing with cornerstones and bricks and tiles for recycling. And the enormous rock pile here and the slightly smaller new one over there reflect just how much rock we've taken out of the house, especially when compared to a few months ago when it was just the rocks from that big wall inside that we had just taken down. And with the pile moving ever closer towards the house, it's probably going to need some reorganizing, which might be easier if I start reusing some of the bigger and better stones that I've put here. Perhaps when I start some repairing and rebuilding work on this front wall at some stage in the future. But now I'm going to head inside to look at the results of the floor work, and I'll also be making some comparisons with how it looked before from my original house tour video last year. Starting with this entrance space, which is once again full of things that are all on top of the layer of rock and gravel that we've added this week. So the floor level in here is now actually quite similar to how it was before we did any of the work in this space. But for the first time, this whole open area now has the same floor level after the gravel adding this week that followed the various digs and rock removal since this old photo. But this whole area, like all of the ground floor, is going to have various new layers added to it going forward, with the final finish being this level on the wall, which will be the same across all of the ground floor walls, albeit below the level of concrete in the other rooms. So these doorways won't be quite so tall, especially when they're given their finish at the top. But the difference to these earlier photos will still be quite dramatic, even when the floor in this room moves slightly closer to the now much higher ceilings. And that window up there will be adjusted like a number of other ones so that it's a good deal more reachable. And then this corner and this doorway will also have some adjustments. But from now on, this side of the house will always have the same floor level as that side of the house. And the floor to ceiling space will be very different to how it was before, even with the finishing layers on top. So the new stairs will need a couple of extra steps there, even if I will be using this ladder for quite a while longer. And these doorways will need their final finishes for their shape to become a bit more normal and somewhere between how they are now and how they were before. In all the rooms, despite my best efforts to break up a lot of the stones on the floor, you do need to watch your step quite carefully, as it's now much more uneven than when it was a tile floor like before. And I'll probably do some more manual leveling before some proper compacting with a machine, which will be at about the same time as when I put various plumbing pipes in place, albeit less in this side of the house than in that side of the house. And then in this final room, the changes are a little less clear because of everything that's in here now, but you can still feel the effect of all the extra space that's being created and the ease of moving around all of the ground floor, with the exception of this doorway, which I'm going to need to leave like this for a bit longer, but which I will be lowering to the same floor level later on. But it will be the opposite on the outside, where I'll be adding more layers for the ground floor and all of this terrace in front to be at the same level. So while I'm very pleased with the results of the floor lowering work, there is still some more leveling work to do, but that will be a bit later on. But after my birthday this weekend, Laura and I will be taking a short break, but there will be a new video next week showing another big transformation that I hope will be well worth tuning in for. So I hope to see you then.